I believed I was living a regular married life until one day, while cleaning, my stepson and his friend unexpectedly showed up at the house. The moment I bent down to wipe the large white couches, the door suddenly swung open. I jumped a bit, still hearing the vacuum running, which prevented me from immediately seeing who it was. When I looked up, I saw my stepson Adrian and his friend, who was dark-skinned and athletic, standing in the doorway. Adrian, my 19-year-old stepson, looked nothing like his father, who had a stern and rigid manner. Unlike his father's strict demeanor, Adrian's youthful face always carried a hint of mischief. Adrian's hair was dark brown, and his skin appeared sun-kissed, giving him a tan. His friend, much like him, wore clothes that looked a bit disheveled but gave off a carefree energy typical of youth. "Mom," Adrian said, his voice tinged with surprise but accompanied by a soft smile. "What are you doing here at this hour?" His voice snapped me back to reality, and without realizing it, I turned off the vacuum and stood up. The strap of my tank top had slipped off my shoulder, and as I noticed, I quickly tried to adjust it. However, when I felt his friend's gaze on me, I suddenly felt embarrassed. My cheeks flushed slightly. "I was just cleaning," I said, trying to mask the surprise in my voice. "Why are you both here so early? Aren't you supposed to be at school?" Adrian ran a hand through his hair and chuckled lightly. "We left early today. Wanted to hang out with Tom, but I didn't expect to catch you like this." Tom, Adrian's friend, stepped forward, gave me a faint smile, and quickly scanned me with his eyes. I felt slightly uneasy, but at the same time, there was an odd curiosity in the way he looked at me. Adrian, standing next to him, seemed more innocent. But the depth in Tom's gaze, like there were unsaid things, made me feel uncomfortable. Adrian shrugged and spoke casually as if it was nothing. "I knew I'd find you cleaning when I got home, but I didn't expect you to look this good," he said, his eyes sparkling with playful mischief. Tom, removing his shoes, interjected with a surprised smile. "Adrian, is your mom really 42?" he asked, raising his eyebrows. In the brief silence that followed, I heard Adrian chuckle softly. "Yeah, Tom. Why, does she look old to you?" Tom's eyes swept over me quickly before replying, "Definitely not. You look really young and attractive," his voice carrying a sincere warmth. In that instant, I became aware of the thin fabric of my top and the leggings outlining my body's shape. With a shy shrug, I replied, "Thanks," feeling an involuntary smile form on my lips. Adrian and Tom moved to the living room and began playing on the PlayStation, lounging on the couch, absorbed in their game. I saw this as an opportunity to finish tidying up the living room. I grabbed a dust cloth and started cleaning around the TV. As I wiped down the sides of the television, I caught a glimpse of Adrian and Tom watching me. They seemed to have stopped playing and were quietly observing me. At first, I felt a little uncomfortable, but deep inside, I couldn't deny that I liked the attention. Suddenly, I felt younger, more attractive. Not wanting to focus on it, I composed myself and went to the kitchen. After some time, Adrian came into the kitchen, claiming he wanted coffee. "Can you make us iced coffee?" he asked, his expression innocent. At that moment, I had climbed onto a chair to clean the inside of the kitchen cabinets and was leaning forward. I looked up and answered, "Of course, I'll make it right away," but I couldn't ignore Adrian's gaze lingering on me. There was something intense in his eyes that made my heart race for a brief moment. I made the coffee and returned to the living room. Adrian and Tom were still engrossed in their game. I handed them their iced coffees and sat beside them, feeling a warmth being close to them. Tom, as chatty as ever, started discussing game strategies, and Adrian joined in. However, Tom's phone rang, and he quickly stood up to leave. "I have to go," he said, rushing out. Adrian shrugged casually. "No worries." "You'll come by again later," he said. After Tom left, the room fell silent, leaving just Adrian and me. The soft hum of the game console was the only sound. Adrian turned to me, a slight smile on his face. "You've got a different kind of energy today," he said, his voice warm and focused. In that moment, I felt the atmosphere shift, as though the air had grown heavier. Adrian broke the silence with a deep breath, a playful grin on his face. "It's probably for the best that Tom left," he said, his eyes locking with mine without wavering. "I've been wanting to spend some time alone with you since you married my dad, but the chance never really came up." His words caught me completely off guard. I realized I was gripping my coffee mug too tightly, unable to fully grasp what he meant, or maybe I didn't want to. I briefly met his gaze, but quickly looked away. Why would you want something like that? I asked, my voice betraying nervousness. Adrian shrugged lightly, leaning closer on the couch. His expression became more serious, and his confident posture left me momentarily breathless. Because I know my dad doesn't make you happy, he said. When I look at you, it's like you're searching for something else, like you're not getting the attention you deserve. My heart began pounding in my chest. Hearing those words felt both mortifying and incredibly tempting. I didn't want Adrian to see how flustered I was, but the heat rising in my cheeks gave me away. Adrian, you shouldn't be saying things like that, I managed to reply, my voice shaking. But when I looked at him again, I couldn't deny the flicker of excitement his forbidden words stirred within me. Adrian fell silent for a moment, his eyes fixed on mine. You're right, he said slowly, his voice deepening. Maybe I shouldn't, but it's the truth. And I felt like I had to say it. The space between us had nearly disappeared. He was so close now that I could feel his breath. He set his coffee mug aside and leaned in toward me. This coffee is really good, he said, his voice warm, making me feel completely vulnerable. After a brief pause, he gently kissed my cheek. A wave of shock and warmth flooded through me. I couldn't move, didn't move, even if I wanted to. The magic of the moment left me frozen. Adrian didn't pull back. His eyes remained locked on mine as his lips moved toward me again. I couldn't summon the strength to stop him. I didn't resist, kissing him back softly, deeply. Time seemed to stop as I stood on the edge of something forbidden. My heart raced with fear and intense excitement. Adrian's warmth, his closeness, and the sincerity in his touch drew me into a complexity I had never felt before. Yet deep down, a voice reminded me that this wasn't right. When our lips finally parted, I was breathless, and my thoughts were a mess. Adrian, I started, but the words caught in my throat. He gently interrupted. I know, he said calmly but firmly, but I can't hide how I feel, and I think you feel something for me too. His words terrified me, but they also pulled me in like a magnet. I couldn't resist. I lowered my gaze to the floor, hoping the confusion in my mind would somehow clear. But Adrian's presence kept breaking through every rational thought I had. Adrian stepped back slightly, taking a deep breath. A determined look appeared in his eyes. He straightened up and moved closer again, step by step, carefully watching every movement I made. His hand rested gently on my waist, soft but assertive, as though testing every boundary I had left. For a moment, I couldn't breathe, my heart racing wildly. When our eyes locked again, the intensity of the moment was undeniable. Adrian pulled me a little closer, and this time his lips met mine with a deeper, more passionate kiss than before. My body responded to his warmth, and every sound, every thought in my mind faded as my mind became clouded. I gave in to him. But then, everything shifted so suddenly, it felt like the room spun. Before I knew it, I was sitting on the couch, still in the clothes I had been cleaning in, trying to process what had just happened. The warmth from Adrian still lingered on my skin, but the storm of emotions inside me was impossible to ignore. My thoughts spiraled. What had really happened? How much of it was real? And most importantly, when my husband returned, would anything ever be the same again? Could we ever go back to normal? I quickly stood up and headed to the shower. The hot water stung my skin as I tried to wash away the confusion clouding my mind. Deep down, something inside me felt as if it were about to shatter. I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened and what it meant, about the price I would have to pay for it all.